Welcome to the third episode of Breaking Bread, sponsored by Growing Up Italian. I'm here with a dear friend of mine and former teacher, Richard Vetere. Hey, Richard, what's up?
How you doing, man?
So, we're here. This is the second time that we're filming this around, you have your new book that's just out. Why don't you tell the audience at Growing Up Italian a little bit about it?
Sure. It's called Live Fast, Die Young, Leave a Good-Looking Corpse. A lot of people know the phrase. They don't realize that the phrase is from a movie called Knock on Any Door with Humphrey Bogart and John Derek. And John Derek is an Italian-American from the West Village who kills a cop. And on his way to the electric chair, he tells the prosecutor, Humphrey Bogart, live fast, die young, leave a good-looking corpse. And I thought it was really interesting for a title for my memoirs of the 1970s. And what's interesting is we're in Williamsburg now, and I would say half the stories in the book, which are true stories, took place in Williamsburg, but about 1973.
Mm-hmm. So it's safe to say that Williamsburg has probably changed a lot since the last time that you were here, or writing about it, I guess I should say.
Yeah, my mother's family, the Giulianos and the Iannuzzi's, that was her family. They had a house on Lamar Street and Richardson, so right next to McCarran Park. So I would come and visit my relatives. But then in early 80s, I wrote a movie called Vigilante, and we went back to Williamsburg and shot in McCarran Park. So when you see the film, you see Fred Williamson chasing this actor. He's a friend of mine. And it's full of graffiti. I mean, McCarran Park, nobody went there. It was just scary. It was just... and now I see people, with strollers.
Yeah.
And my mother told me in the, I guess in the 40s it was, she could walk across McCarran Park at 2 or 3 in the morning and not think about it.
That is, wow. Definitely the times have 100% changed.
Yes.
But, so Richard here has pretty much done it all. Writer, actor, author, screenwriter, playwright. You've done it all pretty much. What are you up to?
Don't forget the 3 books of poetry.
Yeah, and the 3 books, and poet,
Because
sorry.
I started as a poet.
Yeah.
I started as a poet, and I realized it was going to be tough making a living. I went to Columbia for my master's in comparative English literature, and I remember sitting down one day telling my father, I love movies. Maybe I should try to write movies. Because he worked as an expediter for Universal Pictures on 56th and 11th Avenue. So I would get movie posters. We would go to all the openings, believe it or not. And I realized how much I loved movies. So I wanted to write movies. But in between then, I was also writing plays when I was a young kid.
If you don't mind me asking, what was your dad's reaction when you told him you wanted to watch movies? Because I told my dad that, and my dad wasn't too happy.
Well, I'll tell you. He wasn't happy.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget when Vigilante came out. I took the family to the theater. I called up the movie theater, told them I'm the writer, and they made a big deal because there was a premiere, and I really couldn't take everybody to the premiere. So I took them, and when we went home, he said to me, he said, what are you going to do now? You could quit. You proved yourself. I go, no, I'm going to keep writing. And he said, you're just like the Kennedys. I said, what are you talking about? He said, they're never satisfied. They always want more. And I'm like, no, this is what I am.
Yeah. That's a good analogy, though, because as a writer, my self, I'm definitely, I love what I do, but I always want to do more. Always, always, always.
And you're never satisfied.
Yeah.
I'm much older than you, and I'm still writing new stuff. You had just asked me what I'm working on now.
Yeah.
Well, I've had a pretty good reaction so far to Live Fast, so I'm actually writing part 2.
Really?
Yeah, it's called Live Fast, Die Young, Leave a Good-Looking Corpse, part 2. And it's a memoir of the 70s and 80s.
Okay.
Because I got really lucky. Vigilante was a big success. And
80s cult classic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Bam called it one of the best indies of the 1980s. So I got an offer to write a movie in Paris. And I lived the summer '87 in Paris, and not only wrote for one Parisian producer, I wind up being flown to Saint-Tropez, Nice, Toulon, and living on the French Riviera, and wrote for the producer, director, Jules Jacquin, who made Emmanuel. That was a big movie. You know, it was softcore porn, but it was huge.
Yeah.
And so I lived in Paris for about 3 months writing films.
Wow, that's just to relate to the audience, and there's a lot of people that come in the office here growing up Italian who want to be what you are, who want to accomplish what you've accomplished, and seeing that you're here, you're in the flesh, and that you've done everything from writing to poetry to plays, and it's awesome that it's I guess that we can say that it's a reality.
Yeah, I've been kind of special because other than Paris, another city I got hired to write a movie in is Rome. Mm-hmm. Out of the blue, a producer called me up and said, we love Vigilante. We want to fly you to Rome and have you write a film for the director, Giacomo Battiato. And I said, wow. And he said, when could you leave? We're going to send you a first class ticket. And I had a plan to go to LA for meetings. Mm-hmm. So I was living a fun life, flying to LA, taking meetings, staying there for a little bit, flying from LA to Rome. And, with the Writers Guild rules, they have to fly you business or first class. So I was making trips that summer back and forth to Rome. And I spent this summer in Rome. And it was really exciting for me because I've never been there. And what was really great was my mom was still alive, so she got to visit me with my cousin and
that's nice
girlfriend, and it was really cool to. But the international aspect of it, I think, is something exciting. Anybody could go to Hollywood.
Yeah, that's true. Did you meet any nice Italian actresses?
Yeah, I actually, going back to Paris, which was a few years later. It's a story I don't want to ruin because it's in the new book. But I did, real quickly, I saw an actress in a movie here and said, I would love to meet someone like that if I went to Paris. Would you believe my first night I met her?
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
So, and that, I won't say anything more. But, it's, I think in this business, you got to live fast.
Yeah.
Don't die young.
Yeah.
But you got to be open to any possibilities because they could come like this, the phone rings. In those days, you didn't have cell phones.
Yeah.
If you missed the call, you missed the call. And I remember when I said, could you be in Paris in 2 weeks? Wow. I had a passport, but I didn't have a visa. So I had to run and get a visa. And when I was on that plane to Paris, man, it was like, this is pretty amazing. My father was like, they're flying you to Paris. I said, yeah, see, Vigilante. It doesn't end. More stuff happens.
That is the dream life. I remember not too long ago when I published my book, my dad was terrified for me to travel internationally. So I was living at home at the time, and he threatened to kill me, the whole thing, if I go. So I lied, and now you're going to find out, Dad, but I lied, and I said that my publisher sent me to go, put my book in bookstores there, and I actually Googled bookstores and all this stuff, but it just made me think of that, again, you're living the real life story.
Thanks. When my novel came out, The Third Miracle, I was the opposite of you. I didn't go to the foreign countries for the novel. I don't know why, because The Third Miracle was actually Book of the Month in Poland, and I still haven't been there. Yeah. Well, the movie was made, directed by Nishka Holland, and starred Ed Harris. Yeah. So
great actor.
Yeah, and he was great to work with. And we shot it in Toronto, even though it was set in Queens. Mm-hmm. And I didn't go to Spain, where the book was doing well. And it wound up, the movie was very successful in Catholic countries. So the book wound up being a book club in, not Greece, but in Spain. What
would you say, since we talked about a bunch of your different works, what would you say you're the most proud of or is your favorite? And those could be two different things, actually.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question, and it's really difficult to answer. It's really hard.
If you're throwing everything together, so I'm talking about poetry, books, everything that you've done.
Well, I always wonder, as artists, we wonder, what are we going to be remembered for? I mean, you don't want to think about it when you're writing stuff. Things that I like a lot, I have a novel called Writer's Afterlife, which I love, and it's about a writer who dies young, 40, and he goes to the writer's afterlife. and he finds out that he's not famous enough to hang out with all the famous writers. And I really like that. I don't know where I came up with that idea.
I love that idea. As a writer, I absolutely love that idea.
Have you read it?
No, I have it. It's on my bookshelf. I haven't read it yet.
All right.
Yeah, I haven't read it yet.
Because I want writers and artists to read it to see that we all go through this.
Yeah.
You know, we all go through. And he has the opportunity to go back to life, you know, after death for 1 week to see if he could change his destiny to be famous. Because I think fame is what a lot of us are interested, always in Western civilization. Yeah. I'm really proud of my screenplay, Caravaggio. Mm-hmm. Been working on it for a long time, and it's now in the works. I can't say too much. I don't want to, say too much of what isn't for sure yet. But it's going out there, and I've been working on it for a long time. For you young writers or emerging writers, it takes a long time, some projects. I mean, that script's been floating around for a couple of decades.
Wow.
Russell Crowe wanted to make it.
Really?
Yeah, met him real briefly. Oh. He wanted to play Caravaggio. It didn't work out. I a lot of stars I could throw names at you who read the script and loved it, but I just could never get the right producer, the right this, the right that. Right now, I think it's in the right hands, so we'll see.
That's amazing, and I can't wait to hear, I guess, what's coming next.
Yeah, that's one of the big things. I just wrote a play about Joe McCarthy, and I don't know if younger people know who he was, but I just finished that play, and I'm trying to get that going. And I wrote a play called Zaguata, which is about because I grew up in Maspeth, and over the years, people have been arrested who were capos or guards in the concentration camps.
Which is shocking to me because I'm from Maspeth, and it's just crazy to think Nazis in Maspeth, those two really don't go together.
Well, they were in the Polish section.
Yeah.
They spoke Polish or German. And so just 2 years ago, someone was arrested.
Wow.
And I said, I got to write this play. I've been thinking about it for 20 years. So I wrote the play, and it's now published. Just got published before the pandemic. And there's going to be a really big reading in February, international. And we're waiting to see if there's going to be a production in Los Angeles. I'll know soon. And
for play or film?
Stage play.
Wow,
yeah.
nice.
I like stage plays. I've been very fortunate because I've turned my work into movies. I wrote a play called The Marriage Fool about me and my father. When he was dying, I said I wanted to capture his language, how he spoke to me, in a play. So I did a little one act that Farley Granger played my father in. And then every night after the show, Farley would say, this is too short, you got to make it a full-length play. So I did. It got produced. And then eventually, believe it or not, I sold it to CBS.
Wow.
And I got Walter Matthau, Carol Burnett, and John Stamos. And John played me. And my father...
That's a compliment.
Yeah, exactly. Having dinner with John was a kick because he never ate anything. These guys are really skinny. I mean, he weighed this much.
I can't imagine that. I mean...
having dinner with those guys
I can't imagine it. Personally.
Yeah.
I can't imagine it.
Well, I'll tell you about George Clooney, too, because I worked for him. But... So my father was played by Walter Matthau, and we shot in Toronto, and it's now out there. It was the highest rated CBS TV movie ever. And then somebody in England decided, I guess, got the rights to release it as a film, but they called it Love After Death. Not my favorite title. So that was something also that was based on my published stage play, The Marriage Fool. I wrote a play called How to Go Out on a Date in Queens, and it was made into a movie with Jason Alexander and Ron Perlman. Yeah. In fact, I never met Ron on the set, and I was having dinner with him at Sardi's maybe 3-4 years ago with Dan Laurier, who's a good friend. And I said, Ron, we never met. You're in my movie. I said, have a date in Queens. I wanted to meet you. He said, I had so much fun beating up Jason Alexander because he played a Russian mob guy, and he beats up the bookie played by Jason Alexander. So it's fun when you go to a party, you go to dinner, and you meet somebody. You're in my film. I wrote that.
I could imagine.
Yeah, it's kind of fun. He was a good guy, and so I got lucky. My stuff has been turned into movies.
Yeah. Who would you say, since you just threw a ton of names out there, who would you say you loved working with the most? Actors.
Wow. I have to tell you, the stars I've worked with are always easygoing.
That's great.
I mean, Carol Burnett. Carol Burnett was nervous. I mean, she asked me to come up to her suite to work on a scene. And I think she was kind of nervous because she had to play a woman from Queens. And she said, could you say that I'm originally from Oklahoma, which I think is where she's from? I said, sure, we could put that in the script. So I wrote that in the script. She was a sweetheart. Walter called me up one day before I met him. And the phone rings. I answer, and he goes, it's Matt Dow. So I said, really? He goes, yeah. I want to change Frankfurter to hot dog. Or a hot dog to Frankfurt. I can't remember.
Frankfurt. I haven't heard that in a long time.
And because it was in the script. Yeah. And he said, this is funnier. I said, Walter, you know what's funnier. Let's change it. And he says, I'll fax you the change. So I got a fax a couple of minutes later. So he was really good. John Stamos was really good. Ed Harris is really pro. Really great guy. I can't think of anyone that I worked with that wasn't Robert Forster, who just passed away.
Yes. I was going to ask you about that next, actually, because he starred in what made you, right?
Yeah,
what made you who you are.
Yep, and he was great to work with. Great guy to work with. It's such a shame. I was shocked. He hadn't worked after Vigilante in a couple of movies. He hadn't worked for 20 years. And I would go over to his house for these spaghetti parties when I was in L.A. on Sundays.
Spaghetti parties?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He was half Italian.
No, but what do you mean, like spaghetti parties? Like they would actually cook spaghetti?
Oh, everybody, yeah, they make
like,
spaghetti.
I don't know if that was code word for some Hollywood thing.
No.
You never know.
No, Dan Luria had spaghetti parties too. Yeah. No, guys would come over Sunday and they make spaghetti. It's cheap. You make a good sauce, and we hang around. Yeah. And I didn't know Robert was half Italian. He was half Scottish and half Italian.
Shocking to me.
Yeah. So you wind up a lot of people are half Italian. I find out. And so Robert didn't work for years, and then after he did Tarantino's Jackie Brown, which I think Tarantino was a big fan. I think I was told that of Vigilante.
Wow,
and that's why he cast Robert.
That's a huge compliment.
Yeah,
that's a huge compliment.
Yeah, because Bill Lustig, who directed it, was him and Tarantino were pretty much the same kind of mindset creatively. And Robert, I said, Rob, you want to do a play now? I got a play. He goes, no, I got to catch up all the movies I didn't get a chance to make.
So you could say that you technically influenced him because his breakout film was Reservoir Dogs.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so, obviously your film was, you like for that, and if he's a fan of your film, it's safe to say that you influenced him.
Yeah, I think my director, Bill Lustig, was onto something.
Wow.
He knew. He came to me about Vigilante, and he said, I want to do Death Wish. You know Death Wish. Do you remember it? Yeah, with Charlie Bronson.
Yes.
White-collar Death Wish. He says, I want to do blue-collar Death Wish. And we're going to call it, we kind of screwed around with the title for a while. Mm-hmm. So he saw a play of mine called Rockaway Boulevard at the Actors Studio. Mm-hmm. And he said, you're my writer. I want you to write this. I'm going to hire you. So I was like, I never wrote a screenplay before. I had been hired. No, that's not true. A couple of years earlier, I was a security guard. And
really?
I hated it. And here I am with a master's, right? But I wanted to get a job that I hated, so that I'd force myself to get a job writing.
That's actually a really good point.
Well, let me tell you something.
That's a really, really good point.
I was sitting alone in my apartment one night, and I said it out loud to myself. I said, I got to get a job I hate so that I can make a living as a writer.
So you hustle more.
Yeah. And I got this job as security guard, and I figured, I hated it. But two perks. I got to be Paul Newman and Robert Redford and Joanne Woodward's bodyguard one night.
Really?
Yes, and I was a big fan of Paul Newman.
Yeah, because
the
Hustler. For those of you who don't know, Richard here teaches at Queens College. He was my screenwriting teacher, and basically started my own writing career, which I'm forever thankful to you for. He screened The Hustler many, many times.
Yeah, and so here I am seeing Paul Newman, face to face. I'm his bodyguard. Joanne Woodward, who I loved, and Robert Redford. I got to tell you, I only had a few minutes alone with him because we were alone. And I got to tell you, he was the coolest guy.
Really?
Oh, he was great. Here I am in the elevator, and we're going to take the elevator up. It was the Waldo Pepper movie premiere that he starred in. He had jeans on, leather jacket, and he gets in the elevator with me, and he says, where are we going? I said, I got to take you upstairs. He said, there's going to be a crowd of people. And he said, look at my hand. I'm sweating. Hate this stuff. I could tell you. I remember exactly what he said. We get up there, and he goes, here goes. The elevator opens, and all these people, lights going off. And he was, like, to me, the coolest guy.
Wow.
Coolest guy. A couple of years later, I got into the Actors Studio, and there I am with Paul Newman. And I brought it up, but he didn't remember me. And guess what? Joanne Woodward came years later, came to see my play Gangster Apparel. And I said, Miss Woodward, I was, your bodyguard. And he said, I don't remember.
So I gotta ask you,
Yeah.
because I know that I remember in screenwriting class, you mentioned you almost wrote for The Sopranos.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I know you brought it up. Did you happen to see the Many Saints of Newark yet?
No, I've been reading all the reviews.
Yeah. What do you think? Just going into it, you haven't seen it. Almost everyone has. I just want to hear your opinion because you almost did write for the show.
Well,
the idea of a prequel. All that
can I
stuff.
tell you about how that happened?
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah. I fly to L.A. and my agent, William Morris, gives me a pilot, and it was the pilot. So I watched the pilot. And I go, all right. I wasn't crazy about it. But I go to the meeting, I get off the plane, I got jet lag, I go to the meeting, and I tell a producer at HBO, I could write this stuff in my sleep. Not a good thing to tell people. So I didn't get the gig. But I don't know if I told you this story. Years later, people were saying to me, oh, I'm an Italian American and, The Sopranos, and they were upset with it. So I wrote a piece in the Times. No, I'm not with the mob. And they published it. And I asked my students at Queens College, could you name one of the 5 Nobel Prize winners in literature who are Italian? They couldn't name one. You can name at least one.
Not right now. Just off the top of my head. I'm also put on the spot with the camera. I don't know, but fair enough.
Pirandello.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And there's and Montanelli. There's 4 more.
Wow.
Yeah. It's so, but I said, they know a lot of mob guy names.
Yeah.
So David Chase read the piece. So I'm at Mandicati's, a restaurant in Long Island City, with a good friend of mine, Sonny Grasso, the French Connection. He passed away last year. And I said, okay, I'm with Sonny and his cousin. And David Chase was sitting there.
Wow.
I think I should go over and say hello because I got backup.
Yeah,
I got
right.
Sonny. And Sonny knew him, so I went over to shake his hand. And he didn't shake my hand. Yeah. So he was upset with the article. So what I didn't realize was then I go to Beverly Hills and I am having dinner with, I'm not dropping names here, but I'm having a private dinner with Tony Danza. All right, just 2 or 3 people. And Tony says, I read what David Chase said about you in the Times. I said, no, don't tell me. I never read the piece. He said, yeah, he answered your piece. So make a long story short, at the Writers Guild party, David had made a movie about a guitar player, Not Fade Away, maybe is the title.
That sounds really familiar. Yeah. I think it was Not Fade Away.
And I said, David, man, there's some wonderful stuff in here. So we got to talk, and it's fine.
Yeah.
But, listen, I watched The Sopranos like everybody else. And I got to be friendly with people on that show. And I know people on that show still. So, and I think you've interviewed Raymond Abruzzo.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ray Abruzzo. Great guy.
Yes.
Great guy. He's coming on next, actually.
Oh, great.
Yeah,
great.
he is coming on next. He was actually supposed to talk with me via Zoom tonight, and he was teasing me, saying, "Oh, you unbooted me for Rich."
Well, he once stole a date from me. So
really?
Yeah, I'm not going to tell you.
Oh, okay.
But Vinny Pastore is a good buddy, and he did my short film, The Kids Menu.
Okay, yes, you screened that in class.
Yes, I did. I showed you. Yeah. He played a pizza owner, a guy in a pizza place, who will not have a kids menu. He's an Italian American. He's going to hold his ground. So I got to know a lot of guys on there, and still friendly. Some I wish I had gotten to meet. Haven't met them yet. And Edie Falco I knew before. So
I heard that she's a great person. Just the nicest, sweetest person.
Actress.
Yeah.
Brilliant actress before The Sopranos. Yeah. I remember seeing her in an Israel Harvard's play. And I went up to Israel and said, where did you find this actress? Why isn't she famous? He goes, you know this story.
Yeah.
I don't care how much talent you have. It takes a long time, if ever. That same person, Bill Pullman, was doing a reading of mine, a director. And I said to the director, why isn't this guy a star? And he said, you know the drill. Yes. This is New York. This is L.A. It's hard. And then look at Bill. So if you hang in there enough, things will happen. They never happen the way you expect them to, but they happen.
So as a writer, you've written screenplays. I'm beating a dead horse. You've written books. What do you think, like, the idea, like, you're taking something iconic, like The Sopranos, 20 years later,
Right.
like, you're going back to something that I thought was lightning in a bottle. David Chase had a huge influence on me, just in my own career. What would you say is, like, the dangers of going back and making a prequel? They obviously can't make a sequel. So, like, what would you say?
When I heard he was doing it, I said, that's a great idea. Mm-hmm. That's a great idea because you have a built-in audience. And when he was going to Newark, mm-hmm. I thought that was a great idea. Mm-hmm. The Italian Americans, African Americans together.
Yes, big thing.
Yeah, I remember that, those days. So I thought that, boy, is this going to be powerful. That's my only impression of it mm-hmm. so far because I haven't seen it. Okay. But I thought it was a great concept for him to do that.
I thought, what's his name was brilliant. The guy who played Vicky Moltisanti was brilliant.
Really?
Brilliant. Yeah, he was absolutely brilliant.
I will get to see the movie because I get all the DVDs and the streaming sent to me because I got a vote. Mm-hmm. But let me tell you a quick Sopranos story.
Yeah.
Right before Sopranos took off, I was with Sonny, mm-hmm. Sonny Grasso. Sonny was a really successful producer, and I had this story about an Italian American family. Well, one of the sons is a mobster, and one of them is a cop.
Oh, I think I remember you saying this too. Or Ray was in something like that.
Yeah, but this was something that I had developed with Sonny. So Sonny said, we're getting on a plane and we're flying out to Fox. So he flew me out there, mm-hmm. and we went to Fox to pitch it. And the woman we pitched it to loved it. This is pre-Sopranos.
Pre-Sopranos.
Now, I don't think I could have written just focusing on the mob side because Sonny was a well-respected, he won awards as a cop, mm-hmm. and he knew both sides, French Connection, I mean, you know the movie. But I know he would have stopped me from, but maybe not stopped me, probably would have said, let's stay right down the line. But the woman producer loved it, but she went to the boss, and the boss said, I don't want to do a mob story.
Really?
We fly back to New York. As we land, we hear that we got 2 weeks later, this guy is fired. And I think Fox picked up, David Chase worked for Fox. Mm-hmm. So he went to HBO, and look what happened with Sopranos. And that guy got fired. Wow. But we were close, because I said, we got to do another Godfather. When I was a kid, mm-hmm. I was working unloading trucks at UPS with my good buddy. And actually my other good buddy wasn't working there, said he brought us a book called The Godfather. So I have never had that experience where I was reading a book with other guys, and we would just read a chapter a day and then talk about the chapter at night.
Wow. So
and that was The Godfather. And I remember saying at a dinner table at Mandicotti's, I think we could do a series where people will wait each week for an episode, and if it's about the mob some way, we'll get them. I want to replicate The Godfather. Now, you're making me think of something 20 years now. Yeah. But that was the truth.
Wow.
I mean, could you imagine? I mean, I don't think we would have done anything like The Sopranos because The Sopranos had its own special feel. And Gandolfini really makes that show.
I personally love, like, the psychological aspect of it. Drew, like, me in the most. Obviously, I love the whole mob theme, but, just that he's in therapy, all the stuff that's going on. Mental health plays a huge role now. There's, like, a whole new generation of kids. Well, I shouldn't say kids, but people in their mid-20s who were Sopranos fans, so it's a really interesting take, to look back on all this. Since you did play a part, technically.
Yeah, and it took place in Jersey.
Yeah, that too. That too.
You know the whole thing. He was always told never shoot the skyline.
Yeah.
Yeah, Timmy Van Patten told me that. I can't shoot the skyline.
If you could, looking back on it, would you say that there's any projects that you passed on that you wish that you didn't, or if you feel comfortable answering that question?
Oh, yeah, no. There were, and I can't remember what they are now, but there were 2 movies I said no to write, and they were made. Mm-hmm. One, I was really busy on another project, and the other one, I just didn't like the material.
Okay.
But that happens.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, they weren't huge successes, but they got made, which was nice. But no, I think probably if I had, I'm not sure if I would have been right for writing for David Chase or anybody. Mm-hmm. I worked for CBS. I worked for Danny Aiello, mm-hmm. and Danny was a good friend, and Danny was an actor, and I love writing for actors. Danny hired me. Wow. Oh yeah, that's why I'm working on this possibility of doing a one-man talk about Danny Aiello, the playwright Israel Harvitz, and Sonny Grasso, because I knew all three of them. They were mentors, and each one changed my life. Danny came to see a play of mine called The Classic, and he brought with him the lady, who was Mary Tyler Moore's girlfriend, Rhoda, who played Rhoda. Italian. She was Italian-American. Okay.
Yeah.
She just passed away 2 years ago. Well, they came to the play and laughed hysterically. And Danny came up to me after the show. He said, "You're writing for me for CBS."
Wow.
Yeah, but my first thing was, I'm going to have to get up early. I'm a playwright. I know TV writing. And I was right. But my agent gets a call from CBS. Because of Danny, we want to hire Vetere. We're going to give him a 9-week contract. He starts as a staff writer, and then we'll see if we renew it. And they renewed it, and I stayed with the show for a year. It lasted a year.
You just mentioned something that a lot of people ask me almost all the time. I'm unagented, if that's a word, but I know that people use it. So, I did everything without an agent. Would you say that it's important to get an agent, to not have one in 2021? Does it not matter? I get asked that question. I don't know how to answer it because I'm brand new in the industry. You're like a veteran, so what do you think?
Well, think about it. The more people making money with you, it's better. An agent makes money with you. Managers make money with you. Lawyers make money with you.
Sure.
So they're looking out to make you money so they can make money. So logically, yeah. But in my day, there were less writers. I had William Morris as an agent. I had the top attorney firm as my manager. And they fought. She would say, he should take this. They would say, no. Or she would say, I don't want him to have it. They would say, yes. And when there was money involved, it's worth it. So, yes, today it's different. Because half the novels published are self-published, right?
True.
Small presses. My last 2 books, this, Live Fast, all small press. People write, but they don't read as much. Streaming has changed movie making. Studios, being in the Writers Guild, and I could say this, I was elected to council for 2 years. The inside track was studios are making 4 dramas a year. Dramas mean dramas, not Marvel comic movies or this or that. So the indie world doesn't really exist anymore. You can't make a movie. How are you going to get anyone to see it?
Yeah.
How are you going to advertise it? So to have someone representing you, whether as a manager, your material, certainly helps. But the world has changed, and we're in that kind of time where it's forming, so nothing is definitive. It may take more years before anyone decides. CAA and ICM just merged, so think about that. The industry is getting smaller.
Yeah.
Even though there's more stuff being made, who sees it all? It's impossible.
How would you say is the best way to go about getting an agent?
Well, the way I got mine that changed my life was a producer took me to dinner, and my agent walked in the door.
Right place, right time.
Just as the producer said, you need someone young, a woman, Mary Maher. She's with Gersh. And just as she said that, Mary walked in the door. I swear to God.
Wow.
So like the Greeks say, luck is the residue of design.
Yeah.
I went to that restaurant. It was called Columbus, and I think that would take a whole book. The story's there. I got jobs just being there. But she took me to the restaurant because she was free that night. I had other plans, but had to change them. Had a great time with her, and I went. And it's not like Mary said, "Hey, I'm going to sign you." She totally ignored me. I had to, in those days, call. The assistant kept answering, laughing. I told her you called. I eventually wrote her a letter. There was no email. A letter. And I said, she was a pretty woman. I don't want to date you. I want an agent. Here's my script. And she called me like 2 days later. She said, "Oh my God, let me take you out for a drink. I want to talk to you." And she signed me.
Wow.
Yeah, and then we went from Gersh to William Morris.
And you've had the same agent ever since? Or
I had 5 or 6 agents then.
Yeah, okay.
Because when you go to William Morris, and I was writing TV and film and novels, I had 3
one
agents
for each.
in New York and 3 in LA.
Wow.
Yeah, there's a whole story with Mary. She passed away young. She had problems. The New York Times did a whole story on it. And right now, I haven't been happy with anybody. So I'm doing a lot of the stuff on my own.
So you're pretty much have been based in New York your whole life.
Yeah, I lived in LA when I wrote for, I got hired. Someone saw a play of mine again. My play, One Shot, One Kill, about the training of a Marine sniper. And I got asked to write for a series on ABC in LA. So I had to move to LA. Once again, my agent said, you got to be in LA in 2 weeks. They were offering you this, blah, blah, blah.
And you just up and moved.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. I gave my girlfriend a box and put my clothes in it and said, if I call you in 2 weeks to mail it, here's the money, take it to UPS. Because I did not go with anything.
Yeah.
Because I said I could be gone in 2 weeks.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so I got a box of UPS. And
wow.
I went back the same way. I didn't get a suitcase. I just sent a UPS.
That's kind of an exciting way to live. I'm like a creature of like habit, so I can't ever picture myself doing that. But wanting to be in your industry, I guess I'm gonna have to do that. No.
Well, yeah. I was talking about this with someone writing because I'm writing part 2 about going to Paris. When someone says, "Could you be in Paris in 2 weeks?" You know, listen. You're married. You have kids. You have a job. You can't go to Paris.
Yeah, of course.
And you can't say, "Well, when am I coming home?" I didn't want to come home. You know,
yeah.
Eventually, after an entire summer, they flew me to Saint-Tropez, Nice, and I was down at Saint-Tropez for about 2 weeks. Eventually, I wanted to get home, you know, but it was an exciting thing, and I was getting paid, and I was working, and I didn't have a really great agent. He just handled my deal for me, you know. But agent or no agent, what you really need to do is you got to do everything. You're an entrepreneur.
Advocate for yourself.
Yes, whatever the words they use now is you're an entrepreneur. It's a business. A lot of artists are really good artists, but they don't know how to. You know, we used to use the word schmooze.
Yeah.
But you know, you got to go to events.
Schmooze. I like that. Yeah.
You got to go to events. You got to meet people. You got to say, "This is who I am." You know, I do it a lot, but listen, my most successful playwright friends, like Israel Harvard's produced all over the world. He was always doing it. It's a constant thing.
So you got to put on that Italian charm, is like what you're saying.
Being charming and at least decent looking and well groomed helps a lot.
Yeah, I could imagine.
Yeah, I think about it. I got hired a lot because I look like that. You know what I mean?
Slash.
Like Slash, and that was the way to look. That was actually Clockwork Orange.
What was yes? Yeah, well, I figured with the cane in that movie was huge.
I love that. Alex and the Jews. Yeah. So, I mean, unless you're brilliant, like whatever you put down on paper, people are going to run to. Unless when, you know, like my friend used to say, does Spielberg come over for dinner? So if your family has those connections, that's great. If not, it could take you a lifetime to make them.
So the whole thing with A Clockwork Orange, so you went for that look because it was popular then, or that's what people were looking for?
I was totally into the whole idea of violence being something creative.
Yeah. Well, that was huge at that point. It was the first time, that really violence made the big screen in like that kind of way.
Yeah, I went to St. John's for my BA, and I remember writing an essay and giving it to my professor, and she was like, I don't understand this generation. Now, I would say violence is bad.
Yeah.
Because I'm older, but I wasn't into violence, but sex, drugs, and rock and roll was what I was into.
So, to wrap up the third episode of Breaking Bread, is there anything that you like to tell the audience at growing up Italian? Yeah,
I think there's things about growing up Italian that Italians don't even realize they're doing because they're Italian. You know, I got a grant from the Russo brothers to make a documentary on Italian.
Yes.
Where Are We Now, the Italian American Today? And you could go right to the National NAFA Foundation. NIAF. You can get the documentaries for free. It's up there now. We won a bunch of film festivals and stuff. And what I discovered about Italian Americans is, my question was, have Italian Americans become so Americanized that they've been assimilated? Or are they still holding on to what it means to be an Italian American? And I got kind of contrasting, remarks.
Mm-hmm.
When I asked young immigrants what they thought of Italian Americans, they said, "Who are they?" Because to them, Italian Americans were these other white people.
Yeah, that's...
I said, they're other Americans.
Yeah.
So they will become what Italian Americans have become. They'll hold on to some things, which is good. I mean, one thing I realized when I had to describe myself once at an Italian American conference, I'm trying to remember how I did it. I said, I am a male artist first,
Mm-hmm.
New Yorker,
Mm-hmm.
Italian American, Catholic.
Some would say that New York is a nationality sometimes.
Yes,
Yeah,
I think so.
It
because
is.
no matter where I go in the world, people say to me, "You're from New York."
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
They don't say you're from Des Moines. They don't say you're from Dallas. I'm from New York. And I was born in Manhattan. And it's a way we speak. It's a way and it might be disappearing. I think it's getting limited people, Italian American that have a spirit of being Italian American, which is the language, your body, how you hold yourself, what you think about. But it's also ingrained in being Catholic, I think.
Yeah.
I think it's also ingrained in the family, because we're still people that are close. Family ties are important. Doesn't mean other people don't have that, other ethnic groups, but to us it's always been important. And I think when you look at the history of Italy, the city-states, it's important from where you're from. But when I do go to Italy, and I see people and they look like relatives, I realize I'm not Italian. I'm an Italian American.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of American things I do, which is I like to get things done.
Yeah.
Actually, Giacomo Battiato said that to me when I was writing the movie for him. He said, "You are a combination of Italian and American. Italian, you have the spirit, the poetry.
Yeah.
The American is you're practical. You get things done." And that is the Anglo-Saxon effect that has had on the Italian American who's come to America. We're not afraid to work.
Final question.
Yes.
Since you produced and wrote a documentary sponsored by the Russo brothers, Italian Americans, where they are today, sauce or gravy? What do you call it?
Oh man! Every time I order it, I'm like schizophrenic. I say gravy, and they look at me. I go sauce. But I'm old enough to remember that going to a restaurant ordering pasta didn't make any sense because we had macaroni.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah,
I had macaroni on Sunday and Wednesdays.
That's completely foreign to me because my family never said macaroni. They never said gravy. They never said macaroni.
But my father would say to my mother, "Did you make the macaronis?"
Yeah, that's what my mom's side would say, but they're very Italian American. My dad's side is straight from Italy.
So when I went to a restaurant and they said, "Oh, they have great pasta here," I go, "Pasta? You mean macaroni?" And I went back to tell my father. I said, "You know what we're eating is really cool now." He said, "They call it pasta?" Yeah. But it's macaroni. I go, "I know."
Yeah.
So to answer your question, I would say gravy, but it's really hard to get anybody. When I say it now, they all look at me like, "What is he talking about?"
That's a really mixed response, like that I get. Like I know that everyone beats it with the dead horse, sauce or gravy. The sign's right over there. But I'm always curious because you're not really of my generation, so I'm always curious to get a point of view from someone else.
Oh yeah, no, it's a good question.
Yeah.
This was fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Live fast, die young.